To discuss this, we're joined by Vahyala, Kwaga, Senior Researcher and Policy Analyst at BudgIT Foundation. Vahyala, it's good to see you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
What are the key highlights, you would say, or significant allocations within President Tinubu's proposed budget of more than 27 trillion naira for 2024?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. It's unfortunate that the details at this point are still very sketchy. All we have is the budget speech, and that is not a detailed description of where the monies are going and a detailed description of just where the monies are coming from. I suspect that this may have been a reason why there was a lot of attention given to the approval of the medium-term expenditure framework, and potentially this might be the style going forward, that there would be more attention placed on the MTEF and the fiscal strategy paper, in the interim, as opposed to coming out immediately with or publishing the budget, as it were. Because by now we should have the initial pages of the budget for us to know the breakdown for the revenues, the breakdown for the expenditure, the breakdown for debt, and any other important considerations that the government has, specifically the major sectors, as you have asked. But unfortunately, for now, we really do not have that. We don't have that information.
Vahyala, the president calls this budget of renewed hope, playing on his campaign slogan. How does this budget align with the economic and development priorities outlined in Nigeria's long-term strategy or Nigeria's national development plan? Some people forget we have a national development plan, especially considering the fact that we recently passed 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, both houses of the National Assembly. So how does this budget align with all those plans, including the development plan, which is long-term plan?
Yes, I mean, the good thing is that capital expenditure has actually increased in terms of its aggregate amounts. If you look at the performance of the previous budgets, oftentimes you see capital expenditure being the item, being the line, the main budget subcomponent having the lowest in terms of allocation. And this also speaks to its implementation. So not only do you have a capital expenditure that really should be the driver of your economy, that is the allocation for infrastructure, both soft and hard, roads, bridges, schools, all and what have you. So this seems like a positive for me. The fear now is, will there be appropriate implementation? Because so if you look at the National Development Plan, it has strategic objectives, establishing and laying a strong foundation for a diversified economy, investment in critical physical, financial, digital, science and technology frameworks, building security and enhancing that capacity, ensuring that Nigerians are vibrant and educated, promoting development opportunities, etc. So really, this is only going to be answered, or majorly going to be answered, by the attention that the implementation of the capital expenditure will provide. Yes, the recurrent expenditure is actually very important. As a matter of fact, the civil service had the chairman of the Federal Civil Service Commission changed to Professor Tunji Olaokpa, who is a seasoned civil servant and an academic who has had extensive experience. So, and I mean, again, we've also seen moves by the head of service to really bring some form of merit to the public service through the introduction of the examinations for the directors, permanent secretaries, I beg your pardon. And if this is a foretaste of things to come, if we're going to see an improvement in the attitude, the behavior, and quality of the public service, then hopefully, the implementation of the recurrent budget, which mainly goes for salaries, will be justified. So we're looking at two sides of the coin: the execution, which is done through the civil service, and the actual projects, which are those capital expenditure items, the roads, the bridges, transportation infrastructure, health infrastructure, education infrastructure, and soft infrastructure, which is actually about justice, the handling of the economy through customs, through NAFDAC, and all those affiliated organizations that ensure that businesses can thrive and businesses are regulated efficiently and effectively. So it's an interesting sign. I think Nigerians should really be expectant to see whether or not the implementation will go the way of this very interesting direction.
What are your thoughts on the proposed borrowing plan for this budget? In fact, let's talk about the borrowing plan outlined in the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework. That had a borrowing plan of 7.8 trillion naira. From the president's speech, did you get a sense of the measures put in place, in the budget, which we're waiting to see, full details, to address the concerns regarding that borrowing plan? Because I think the president also gave us this figure of how much will be borrowed to fund that particular budget.
Yes, I mean the concerns and the worry that you share, I guess you and I share, are probably shared by the rest of Nigerians. This is likely going to be a budget funded to a very large extent from borrowing. And there's already the $8 billion that's in the pipeline. And this is interesting, mainly because this was a government that came out clearly to say that it would not really rely on borrowing. And it's interesting to see them sort of eat their words, in a manner of speaking. This administration has also come into a government, or has come into a situation where the previous government basically borrowed 23 trillion naira. And that is still reading as government debt. So what we can expect is an addition to existing debt. And that will really create challenges in the future for the debt servicing. As you are aware, and I'm sure many Nigerians are aware, our debt servicing costs are in excess of 99% of our revenue. So we are essentially earning less than we are paying back in terms of debt servicing. And that puts the country's resources at great strain, because not only do we have an economy that is to a very large extent reliant on proceeds from oil exports, we have inflation and a rising exchange rates that are pummeling the economy at all sides. So really the idea that there will be more borrowing, especially in the light of the supplementary budget, and how that increased the... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Maya, we have to leave it at that. Like you said, we've not seen the document itself. This is a proposal. We have so many questions for you, but very little time, so we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, Vahyala.
My pleasure.
It's good to talk to you.